The world of EVs is evolving incredibly quickly, but even today in 2022, as we switch into 2023, there are only two go-fast EVs on the market, a Porsche and a Tesla. Apparently, somebody Korean wants to change that. So a go-fast EV is all fine and good, but first we have to define what is going fast. Well, a good benchmark would be the BMW M5. Not too heavy, not too light, 0 to 60, 3.5 seconds, and it is something in the 500 to 600 horsepower range. This, a Kia EV6 GT, not the GT line, has a 430 kilowatt output. That translates to 576 horsepower, 545 pounds of torque, going through all four wheels. Then there's the business of the battery, 77.4 kilowatt hours. That should sound familiar because that's the same size battery as other EV6s. Now that brings us to the obvious question of the range. The EV6, 320 miles of range. The all-wheel drive is 282 miles of range. This, with this kind of output, no surprise at 206. Then there's the performance figures, which this is about, and going back to that M5, 3.5 seconds as a reference, this 0 to 60, 3.4. Looking at other EV6s like the all-wheel drive with 320 horsepower, that one is 6.1 seconds to 60. Then there's the VMAX. All the other ones, 117. This one, 161. When I started this show over 13 years ago, I never in my wildest dreams imagined being here, a drag strip in a Kia crossover that is electric, 4,795 pounds, or depending on how you express your weights and measures, 2,175 kilograms. That is 263 pounds more than the rear drive slow version of this. With that, gonna tell my man here ready to go. And Jesus, it's weird, man. It kind of pulls more in the front than the back. Holy crap, a Kia crossover. This, okay, I expected it to be fast. I expected it to deliver a lot of power. But the thing you noticed the most, the braking. There the engineers did change the rotors. In the EV6s, the regular ones, 12.8 inch diameter rotors. Here it's 14.2 in the back, 15 in the front, and in the front of an EV that has a Kia badge, 4 piston calipers. Now about those brakes, I'm not gonna say there isn't enough braking here, it's just the way they're programmed. Like for example, in the sport or even normal mode, it feels, they let you down a little bit. It feels like there's not enough braking where you're like, okay, I'm gonna push a little bit harder, then you get the braking. But in the GT mode, that's where the engineers have given it enough braking and you definitely feel it. I'd say there's good modulation here. There isn't like an on-off switch feel like in other EVs and hybrids. This is where it matches the personality of the acceleration. So an interesting side note, something that's taken from other go-fast cars that are not just EVs, sports seats, which changes something. The EV6s, they can have either power seat on one side or dual power seats. These, no power seats on offer. Instead, they're kind of a Recaro-esque seat, but they're manual, so I can literally go back and forth and even have a ratchet type up and down height adjustment, which is a neat touch in a sports car. And oh, by the way, there's a fighter jet making maneuvers over us as we shoot. Then there's the way the car drives. That's the bigger difference. Yeah, you expect this to be fast, and that's exactly what it is. But in reality, what's going on here is the change in the composure. This has the adjustable dampers as well as some other differences to make it much more buttoned down. There's both good ride quality here, but composure when you're going around a corner, and that's kind of what this thing is supposed to do. I have to say one little side note here, it's very easy to steer this thing with your right foot in this mode. It is just so much more fun to drive than other electric vehicles. That aside, the composure here is, it's head and shoulders above the other EV6 GT line that we've driven. This, it puts it in the ride category, really the composure category of a Taycan 4S. That car has a lot of understeer. I would go so far as to saying to the point of no steering, because there's so much weight there that pushes the car forward. This car, it's heavy, but the reality is there really isn't understeer here when you consider it is an electric vehicle. I can do a bit more because of the combination of the somewhat lighter battery pack. This one's 1,063 pounds. That gives you an idea of the differential, the delta between this and other vehicles that are ICE. That's the penalty you pay in having the battery, because it weighs so much more than the other components. It's probably a little bit less than that when you throw back in a full ICE motor. Then there's the whole thing of managing the weight side to side, and this is where it is indeed a crossover. I'm not going to say you feel the ground clearance here. What you feel is the higher center of gravity. You feel that this is a crossover and not the coming Ioniq 6N that will probably clean up even more composure than this one. So along with that adjustable suspension comes along more customization. Like, for example, I can set up my own mode, so I can have like normal on the acceleration but stiffer on the steering and the suspension. That also brings about active sound design. So I can change the different sounds here, kind of like what Porsche does with their sound design. However, this one they don't charge extra for. So the thing we've been doing mostly throughout this episode is this largest change. This basically brings about different volume in the sound, giving a different aural sensation as you drive the car down the road. I would argue largest change makes it sound more like a science experiment. It's all-wheel drive, right? And when you drive like a Taycan or something like that, it feels like everything is in sync. This, especially when you're driving it, say from 30 to 50 or accelerating from 50 to 70, the thing you notice the absolute most is the acceleration is different, almost as if things don't feel in sync. It's not a bad thing, it's just a different sensation in the way the car delivers power. Oh, yes. Yes, it is indeed that time again to play your favorite game on the Absence Game with today's contestant, a very fast Kia crossover that happens to be electric. This is the Kia EV6 GT for a base price of $61,400. Now, for the avoidance of doubt, the cheapest EV6 that was on offer was $39,000, but that was a short-range battery. They no longer offer that, so the cheapest one on offer is rear drive, $48,500. The cheapest all-wheel drive is $52,400. Then really, there are no options that could be fitted to this. Accessories, things like floor mats, $170 on a $61,000 car. Or believe it or not, a cargo cover is an option. Really? Give me a break. Now that I have that off my chest, let's have a discussion about the colors. Here you see a stunning red, which does a good job of highlighting the design inspiration of the EV6, which, believe it or not, was the Lancia Stratos. You can see that in the daylight opening. However, if one doesn't want the red, there are three colors on offer. There is a Snow White Pearl, Aurora Black Metallic, or Steel Matte Gray, which is an additional $495. The only other thing we add is the destination and handling for $1,295, which brings us to a total retail price of $63,190. So while you and I are on the track here, let's talk a little bit about Regen. We've been doing this more on the lower level of Regen. There is a one-pedal mode here. I don't know if I would say you want to do Regen in situations like this. It at least gives you the opportunity to control the car yourself. That's the benefit of the way this thing having 4 different levels of Regen. One can have some fun with it, but then driving it around town, there is like a one-pedal mode. Now, if you've seen our previous EV6 or Hyundai Ioniq 5 episodes, you kind of know the script here. These, I've already told you, the best EVs on the market, full stop. And that's not even taking into account the fast 800-volt charging architecture. It's the design, the packaging. Now, me personally, I like the design of the Hyundai better, but either way, a fantastic choice. This, it's just so much more. And yeah, I could bitch and moan about $61,400, but here's the thing, the all-wheel drive at 52, they can't build enough of them. And that in turn brings us to the wish list. If someone is going to ask me for $61,400, for the fastest, best version of whatever car, make it different, not just speed and dynamics of driving. So in this case, the interior is not as good as the Ioniq 5. The materials, tactile feels better in the Ioniq 5. So how about doing this with suede on the inside, and not just the suede and vegan trim seats. I'm talking on the dash, the door panels. Make it feel like an M car on the inside. Let's say it's an additional $1,000 in raw materials. It would transform the interior of this car and go a long way in making me feel better for $61,400. But I am just one man, and this is the point of the episode where I turn this around to you guys to opine in the comments below, or via our social media, MotoManTV, all one word, MotoManTV, all one word, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And with that, if you got value out of this episode, I would greatly appreciate you sharing this with all your friends on your socials. Until I see you in the next episode, bis später.